Imagine waking up tomorrow. Nothing around you has changed. The same inbox. The same messy world. The same unpredictable people. But something inside you has shifted. The noise that once hijacked your mind? Now a distant hum. The triggers that used to set you off. They barely graze you. You move slower but with more purpose. You speak less but with more weight. You still feel emotions but you no longer obey them. That's not apathy. That's sovereignty. And no, it's not magic. It's not something you're reborn with. It's a skill, a practice, a path. One that the Stoics walked long before us and left clues behind. They called it living in accordance with nature. But what they really meant was this: master your inner world, and the outer world loses its power over you. Because real power, it doesn't come from control. It comes from clarity. Let me tell you a truth that might sting a little. Most of us live like leaves in a storm, tossed around by every emotion, every inconvenience, every unmet expectation. We think we're victims of our circumstances. But in reality, we're prisoners of our interpretation of those circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, writing from a war camp, put it simply: if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That line, it's not poetry. It's a doorway. Because if your estimate of a thing creates the suffering, you can revise that estimate. You can train your mind to respond differently. You don't need a quieter world. You need a quieter self. The Stoics understood this long before psychology did. They knew the real battlefield is between stimulus and response. That sacred space where you get to choose. Not react. Not flinch. Not follow old emotional scripts. But pause. Observe. Decide. Let me show you how this looks in real life. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You feel a surge of anger. But instead of yelling, you pause. You ask what's actually at stake here? Your ego? Or your peace? Your partner forgets something important. You feel hurt. But instead of shutting down or snapping, you breathe. You ask, is this carelessness? Or just humanity? That's the Stoic filter. It's not denial. It's discernment. You still feel, but you don't fuse with the feeling. You observe your inner wither, but you don't let it forecast your actions. That practice, done daily, creates something rare in this world. Unshakable calm. And people feel it. They sense the stillness in your presence, the clarity behind your eyes, the restraint in your words. You stop matching chaos. You start anchoring the room. And here's the irony. The less you react, the more influence you gain. Not because you dominate, but because you don't compete with noise. You outlast it. This is the foundation of what we're going to build in the next 12 parts. Each one is a shift, not a tweak, not a tactic. A fundamental turn in how you perceive, feel, and respond to the world. Not to become perfect, but to become present. So if your life feels loud right now, if your thoughts feel tangled, if your heart feels scattered, this is your invitation to stop reacting, to start reclaiming. Because no one can steal your peace. You trade it, often without knowing. And it's time to stop. Time to choose again. Let's begin with the first principle. Because from here on out, everything gets quieter, stronger, truer. Let's talk about what really runs most people's lives. It's not logic. It's not strategy. It's emotion. And most of us aren't driving, we're passengers. We untack. We react. A sharp tone from someone we love. We spiral. A mistake at work. We sink into shame. A flash of fear. We sabotage what we were just building. We obey every emotion like it's a law. But the Stoics had a different idea. They didn't fear emotion. They didn't suppress it. They simply refused to be ruled by it. Epictetus, a slave who became one of the greatest minds of Stoicism, put it like this: we are not disturbed by things, but by the view we take of them. You see, emotion is not the enemy. Emotion is information. It's a message. But you have to remember, a message is not a command. Anger says something feels off. Fear says this matters to you. Sadness says you've lost something you love. But none of them say destroy yourself. Destroy others. Run. That part? That's you interpreting the message as an order. The Stoic hears the emotion knock, but doesn't let it take the keys. He listens. He learns. But he chooses deliberately. Let me give you an image. Imagine a child running into your room, shouting something dramatic. You don't grab your keys and act on it. You ask, is this real or imagined? You investigate. You hold space, but you don't hand over power. That's exactly how you should treat your emotions. Because emotions are often children, loud, urgent, and sincere, but not always accurate. The modern world teaches us extremes. Either indulge every feeling, or repress them until we break. But the Stoic does something subtler, wiser. He witnesses. He sits with anger not to explode, but to understand. He allows grief not to drown, but to honor. He notices envy not to act, but to uncover what it's pointing to. That pause? That's the portal to maturity. Seneca said, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Not denial. Delay. Because that pause between emotion and reaction, that's where your power lies. That's where you get to ask, is this mine? Is this true? Is this useful? And just like that, you shift. You go from being a reactor to a respondent. You stop obeying emotion. You start learning from it. And something changes. You no longer snap. You no longer explain yourself to people trying to provoke you. You no longer live in a storm of feeling. You become the sky above it. And people notice. They feel it in the way you hold yourself. In your tone. In your timing. You don't rush to speak. You don't flinch under tension. You don't chase clarity, you embody it. But here's the most important part. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. It's not about shutting off. It's about turning inward and asking better questions. Every emotion you feel, yes, everyone has wisdom inside it. If you listen long enough, it will reveal a truth. A fear. A need. A story. And when you uncover that, you don't have to act it out. You can tend to it. That's emotional sovereignty. That's what separates the reactive from the resilient. So the next time emotion floods your system, don't push it down. Don't let it drive. Just pause. Just breathe. And ask, what are you here to teach me? Because once you learn to decode your emotions, you stop being afraid of them. And once you stop being afraid, you become someone no one, not even your own mind, can shake. Most people live their entire lives trying to avoid discomfort. They'll do anything to escape and numb it, run from it, talk over it, bury it under distractions and noise. But the Stoics, they walked toward it, not because they enjoyed pain, but because they understood something most never learn. Discomfort is not punishment. It's preparation. Think of anything in your life that made you stronger. Was it easy? The moment you learned to let go? That was after heartbreak. The time you finally spoke your truth? That came after years of silence. The confidence you now carry? Forged in the fire of failure. Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What he meant was simple. What you avoid is often exactly where you need to go. Because comfort doesn't build character. Comfort builds complacency. And complacency is the silent killer of potential. The Stoic didn't just endure discomfort. He welcomed it. Because he knew that in discomfort, the soul stretches. In discomfort, clarity sharpens. In discomfort, you meet yourself raw, real, unedited. Let me tell you a story. There's a reason a butterfly must struggle to break free from its cocoon. If someone cuts the cocoon open to help it, the butterfly emerges weak. Its wings don't develop the strength to fly. Why? Because the struggle is what strengthens the wings. Take that in. The very resistance, the pressure, the pain is what prepares you for flight. So what if the same is true for you? What if that uncomfortable situation you're in isn't blocking your path? It is the path, the hard conversation, the early wake-up, the solitude you've been avoiding, the truth about yourself that keeps knocking. They aren't interruptions. They are invitations, not to suffer, but to transform. Epictetus, who lived as a slave, once said, "Difficulties are things that show a person who they are, not what they pretend to be, not what they post about, but who they really are when comfort is stripped away." Let's go deeper. Sometimes discomfort doesn't come from the world. Sometimes it comes from within, from sitting alone, from hearing your own thoughts, from realizing you've been pretending too long. That kind of discomfort, it's sacred, because it means your old self is outgrowing its limits. It means your soul is ready for a deeper truth. But most people run from that moment. They grab their phone. They distract themselves with noise. Because silence is confronting. Stillness reveals what we've hidden from ourselves. But the Stoic doesn't flinch. He sits. He breathes. He feels. Not to suffer. To shed. To let the pain burn away what no longer serves. Because pain doesn't just hurt. It refines. Like fire to gold. You are being shaped. Every uncomfortable moment is sculpting something in you that ease never could. So if you're in discomfort right now, good. It means you're alive. It means your system is updating. It means something important is unfolding beneath the surface. Don't trust it. Don't numb it. Don't call it wrong. Just stay. Let the discomfort work on you. Not forever, but long enough to teach you. Because when it passes in, you won't be the same. You'll be clearer, stronger, calmer, more aligned with who you're becoming. That's not a setback. That's transformation. So the next time you feel the urge to escape discomfort, stop. Ask, what is this asking me to become? Because the Stoic doesn't avoid discomfort. He uses it. And in doing so, he becomes the kind of person who can walk through any fire and emerge forged, not burned. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as restriction, a burden, a set of rules that steals joy and spontaneity. But here's what the Stoics knew and what modern psychology is only just beginning to prove. Discipline isn't about control. It's about self minus respect. It's saying to yourself, I matter too much to keep breaking promises to myself. Seneca said, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. And discipline is exactly that, a chosen adversity. Not imposed by the world, but invited by your values. Because let's be honest, how many times have you said, you'll wake up early, you'll stop scrolling so much, you'll finally commit to my routine. But when the moment comes, when it's 6 a.m., when the temptation whispers, when the pressure builds, you make the easy choice. And every time you do, you chip away at your own integrity. You teach yourself subtly, silently, that your word doesn't mean much. But when you choose differently, when you rise, when you show up, when you keep your promise even when no one is watching, that's where something sacred begins to build. Trust. Not from others, from yourself. And that's the core of Stoic discipline. It's not punishment. It's alignment. It's choosing what you need over what you want in the moment. It's choosing action over excuse, vision over mood, future you over comfort now. And yes, it's hard. That's why it's rare. But think of anyone you admire not for their talent but for their character. What sets them apart? It's not raw ability. It's consistency. It's the daily, boring, unglamorous choices they make that no one sees but that everyone feels. Discipline isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. But it echoes in your posture, in your tone, in the way you carry yourself through adversity. Let me offer you an image. Picture a river carving through stone. Not because it rushes, but because it returns day after day. That's discipline, not force. Rhythm. The Stoic doesn't expect perfection from himself. He expects returning. Falling isn't failure. Staying down is. So, he gets back up. He tries again. He doesn't wait for motivation. He builds momentum. Because motivation is a spark. But discipline? That's the fire that keeps burning long after the spark fades. And here's the paradox. The more disciplined you become, the more freedom you have. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from the weight of all the things you said you'd do but didn't. Discipline simplifies your life. You no longer negotiate with your lower self. You no longer waste energy debating with distraction. You just act in what matters. So ask yourself, what promises have you been breaking quietly? What patterns keep pulling you back into mediocrity? What would it look like to live as if your word actually meant something? Not just to others, but to you. Because when your actions align with your values, you stop seeking confidence. You start turning it. And that confidence? It's not flashy. It's not loud. It's the calm, steady posture of someone who knows they can trust themselves even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. So don't chase motivation. Chase integrity. Choose discipline not to impress others, but to meet yourself in your highest form. Because the way you treat your time, your body, your word, that's how you treat your future. And your future self? HES watching. Make him proud. Here's a hard truth most people don't want to hear. You're not what you say you'll become. You are what you repeat. We live in a world obsessed with breakthrough moments. The big shift. The overnight success. The life-minus-changing insight. But identity isn't built in those moments. It's built quietly. In the 6 a.m. alarm you don't snooze. In the journal you return to even when your mind feels blank. In the small, silent choices that no one claps for. Marcus Aurelius said, "You become what you give your attention to." And what you give your attention to daily, not occasionally, that's your true identity. Think of it this way. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. Every time you choose patience over irritation, that's a vote. Every time you read instead of scroll, that's a vote. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, that's another vote. One vote doesn't change much. But hundreds, thousands, they become your reputation with yourself. That's where true confidence comes from. Not from external validation, but from internal consistency. Let me show you the opposite. Every time you say, "This is the last time," but do it again. Every time you abandon the habit you swore mattered. Every time you compromise what you value just to feel good for 5 minutes, you reinforce a different identity. One where your words are empty. One where you don't trust yourself. One where your potential stays locked behind patterns. And here's the kicker. Your mind remembers. It remembers the lies. It remembers the excuses. It builds an internal narrative that says, "I'm not disciplined. I'm not focused. I always quit." Not because you are those things, but because your repetition made it seem true. The Stoics didn't wait for inspiration. They built their character the same way a sculptor carves stone stroke by stroke with deliberate repetition. Epictetus didn't say, "Become virtuous when you feel like it." He said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's it. Define, then do. Daily. Even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't. Because that's when identity is forged. Not when it's easy, but when it's honest. Think of a tree. It doesn't grow at all because of one sunny day. It grows tall because it reaches, quietly, every single morning whether it rains or shines. You're the same. You don't need to find yourself. You need to train yourself. Through rhythm. Through return. Through repetition. So ask yourself, what am I repeating? Not what I say I value, but what I actually do. What does my morning say about me? What does my screen time say? What does my discipline or lack of it say about who I'm becoming? And if you don't like the answer, good. It means you're awake. Now shift it. Not tomorrow. No. Because every moment is a vote. And today, you get to vote for the man or woman you're building, not the one you've been settling for. The Stoic path isn't walked in bursts. It's walked in steps. Thousands of them. Daily. Boring. Unseen. But powerful. Because in time, they add up to something unshakable. Not a title. Not an image. A truth. A life that says, I didn't become this by accident. I became this by design. Let go of the illusion of control. There's a quiet kind of suffering that creeps into almost every human life. It doesn't scream. It doesn't crash. It just lingers. It shows up when the relationship doesn't go how you hope. When the job offer doesn't land. When your plans unravel despite all your preparation. And in those moments, your mind whispers a lie. You should have seen this coming. You should have done more. You could have controlled this. But the Stoics knew better. They didn't fall for that lie. They knew that control, real control, is far more limited than we'd like to admit. Epictetus said it in one sentence. Some things are up to us, and some are not. And once you really understand that, you'll be free. Because here's what most people never realize. The more you try to grip what's outside your control, other people's behavior, outcomes, timing, perception, the more you lose your inner peace. And the tighter you squeeze life, the more it slips through your fingers. But when you release the illusion of control, something radical happens. You stop trying to manipulate the storm, and you start mastering your ship. You stop obsessing over the result, and you start toting your response. That's Stoic power. It's not passive. It's precise. Let's make it real. You can't control if someone texts you back, but you can control whether your worth depends on it. You can't control how your boss treats you, but you can control how you hold your dignity in the room. You can't control what life throws at you tomorrow, but you can train your mind to remain ready, calm, steady. The Stoic doesn't waste energy on fantasy. He reclaims that energy for what's his mind, his choices, his character. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because here's the paradox. The more you let go of what you can't control, the more power you have over what you can. And what you can control. That's where your peace lives. Your presence. Your purpose. Your posture under pressure. Think about it. How much energy have you wasted worrying about someone else's reaction? Trying to rewrite a past event in your mind? Trying to predict every possible outcome? All of that gone. Reclaimed. Redirected into what matters. And this isn't about giving up. It's about growing up. It's about finally accepting that life isn't here to obey your script. That it is giving you a role. And you get to choose how you play it. With panic or with presence. With reactivity or with reason. The Stoic picks reason. Not because it feels better, but because it works better. Because you cannot suffer less by controlling the world. You suffer less by surrendering to reality and showing up with strength. So if you're in the middle of something uncertain, something out of your hands, pause. Breathe. Ask, what part of this is mine? And what part isn't? Then release what isn't. And double down on what is. Because trying to control the uncontrollable, that's a prison. But mastering what's within, that's Stoic freedom. That's the kind of calm no storm can touch. Comparison is the thief of clarity. Let's be honest. Most of our anxiety doesn't come from what's happening in our lives. It comes from watching what's happening in everyone else's. You're fine until you open that app. Until you scroll through someone's curated victories. Their perfect morning routine. Their 6-figure business. Their relationship that always looks joyful, filtered, edited, timed just right. And suddenly, your life, it feels behind. It feels not enough. You start asking the quiet question, what's wrong with me? But the Stoics warned us centuries ago. Comparison isn't just a distraction. It's a distortion. Marcus Aurelius said, ambition means tying your well-mindedness being to what other people say, or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. Think about that. Every time you compare, you outsource your peace. You trade your internal compass for someone else's highlight reel. And here's the worst part. You compare your reality, your messy, beautiful, and minus progress truth, to their presentation, their lighting, their branding, their performance. That's not comparison. That's self minus sabotage. And the Stoic? He refuses to play that game. Because he knows that the only life he can live is his own. The only score that matters is the one against yesterday's self. Let me say that again. Your only real competition is who you were yesterday. Everything else? Noise. You don't need to run faster than them. You need to run truer than you did before. And that begins by shifting your attention inward. As what matters to me? What am I building regardless of how long it takes? What values am I living, even when no one's watching? Because the moment you turn your gaze inward, you stop being lost in their race. You start walking your path with clarity, with confidence, with calm. Epictetus reminded his students constantly, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because growth doesn't always look impressive. It's slow. It's quiet. It's invisible from the outside. But it's real. Comparison is like trying to grow a tree while watching someone else's forest. You'll miss the miracle unfolding right in front of you. You'll forget that roots grow downward before anything blooms above the soil. So if you've been feeling small lately, behind, inadequate, not as shiny as them, pause. Turn off the feed. Turn back to your foundation. What did you commit to this year? What battles have you fought quietly? What progress have you made that no one sees but you feel? That's your real measure. Not likes, not followers, not pace. Integrity, consistency, clarity. The quiet knowing that you're rebuilding a life that's yours. So the next time comparison creeps in, don't fight it. Just return to your values, to your truth, to the deep work only you can do. Because the Stoic doesn't chase attention. He chases alignment. And that kind of life, it may not impress the crowd, but it will satisfy your soul. Your mind is a tool, not a tyrant. There's a voice inside your head. You know the one. It narrates everything. It critiques everything. It imagines everything going wrong, plays back everything you said, warns you of things that haven't even happened. And we believe it. We treat it like truth. But the Stoics would stop you right there undasked. Is that your mind speaking? Or your fear? Because here's what the ancient Stoics understood and what modern neuroscience confirms. Your mind is not always your friend. It's a tool. It can be sharp, focused, insightful. But left untrained, it becomes a tyrant. It drags you through regrets you can't change. It floods you with futures you can't predict. It convinces you that thinking more equals solving more. But often, thinking more just means suffering more. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with this daily. That's why he wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. You see, he didn't try to control the world. He learned to govern his thoughts. Because if you don't, your mind will become a courtroom. And you'll always be on trial. What you should have said. What you didn't do. Why your ease still not enough. But here's the truth the Stoics live by. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. You don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to react to every fear, every what if, every memory your mind throws at you at 2 a.m. You can pause. You can question. You can redirect. Let me show you how. When the mind says, I'm failing, you ask, based on what? A moment or a pattern? When it says, they don't like me, you ask, is that a fact or a feeling? When it says, "You're not enough," you respond, "Enough for what? For whose measure?" That's mental sovereignty, not silence. Selection. Choosing which thoughts serve. Letting the others pass like clouds. Because your mind isn't a problem to fix. It's a garden to tend. Left unattended, weeds grow fast. But with daily care, it becomes a place of clarity, of calm, of truth. That's why Stoics practice journaling. It wasn't about venting. It was about observing, separating noise from signal, fear from fact, thoughts from values. And you can do the same. You can interrupt the spiral. You can create space between thought and identity. So the next time your mind races, pause and remind yourself, this is a thought, not a command, not the truth, just a pattern. And then choose. Not the loudest thought, not the most urgent, but the wisest. Because your thoughts don't define you. Your relationship to your thoughts does. And the Stoic, he doesn't fear his mind. He trains it until it becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a prison, but a tool. Sharp, steady, aligned with wisdom. Protect your peace like it's a resource. Most people guard their money. They guard their time. They guard their image. But ask them what they do to guard their peace. Silence. Because somewhere along the way, we were taught to treat peace as a luxury, something we earn after the work is done, after everyone is happy, after the inbox is cleared. But the Stoics knew better. Peace isn't a reward. It's a responsibility. Marcus Aurelius, amid war and politics, said it plainly. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. But that retreat doesn't just exist. It must be built, protected. Because here's the reality. If you don't protect your peace, the world will spend it for you. You'll give it away to every headline, to every angry comment, to every person who's upset because they can't control you. Your peace becomes a currency, and everyone wants a piece. But the Stoic doesn't let peace leak. He defends it, like a castle, with gates, with standards, with a quiet, immovable center that says, I will not trade my calm for your chaos. Let me make it practical. Protecting your peace means you don't answer every message immediately. It means you don't engage in arguments just because you're invited. It means you know the difference between urgent and important. And more than that, it means you filter what enters your mind. Because peace isn't just about what you say no to. It's about what you say yes to instead. Time alone, daily reflection, quality input, healthy boundaries. That's not selfish. That's strategic. Because a person without peace is easily provoked, easily misled, easily drained. But a person with peace? They're different. They walk slower. They speak softer, but their words land. They move through the world without being moved by it. It's not that nothing affects them. It's that they've done the work internally so the outside world can't dictate their state. The Stoic doesn't let the noise in. Not because they chi is detached, but because they chi is disciplined. And here's something to remember. The more peace you cultivate, the more you can give to others. Not from depletion, but from overflow. You can be patient. You can be wise. You can be generous with your presence because you're not leaking energy trying to manage chaos you never chose. So ask yourself, who or what is spending your peace right now? And what boundaries have you been avoiding? Because every time you tolerate noise that goes against your values, you're telling your nervous system, this is normal. But it's not. You don't tell anyone your exhaustion. You don't tell your energy to people who thrive on conflict. You owe yourself a calm mind, a strong center, a life that honors what truly matters. So protect your peace, like you protect your most precious asset, because it is. And when you do, you become the rarest thing in the world, a grounded presence, someone others feel safe around, not because you say all the right things, but because you carry all the right energy. Let action speak louder than overthinking. Here's something no one likes to admit. Most people don't suffer from a lack of ideas. They suffer from a lack of action. They read. They reflect. They rehearse every scenario in their head. And still they stay stuck. Because somewhere along the way, they confuse thinking about change with actually changing. But the Stoics, they didn't waste time in analysis paralysis. They understood that clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. Seneca said it best. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. And isn't that the truth? We imagine what might go wrong, what people might think, what failure might feel like. So we stay put. We keep planning, refining, waiting for the right moment. But here's the hard truth. The right moment is a myth. The Stoics didn't wait to feel ready. They acted based on values, not moods. Because they knew that doing teaches you far more than overthinking ever will. You don't build confidence by thinking about being confident. You build it by showing up when it's uncomfortable and proving to yourself that you can handle it. Let me give you an image. Imagine a dark cave. You want to see the whole path before taking the first step. But the path only lights up as you walk it. That's action. It illuminates the next move. Not all at once, but enough to keep moving. You write one paragraph and the second comes. You take the call, then the fear shrinks. You step into discomfort, then the illusion of danger dissolves. The Stoics practiced this deliberately. They didn't aim for perfect action. They aimed for present action. Smooth, consistent, aligned with reason. And that's what separates the ones who grow from the ones who just gather information. Let me ask you, how many books have you read this year? How many videos have you watched? Ideas you've loved, insights you've saved. And now how many of them have you turned into behavior? If the answer is few, you don't have a knowledge problem. You have an implementation problem. But don't shame yourself. Just shift. Start with the smallest step possible. 5 minutes of action. 1 email sent. 1 boundary stated. 1 uncomfortable but necessary move. Then repeat. Overthinking is a clever disguise. It feels productive. It feels responsible. But often it's fear, dressed as logic. And the Stoic? He doesn't cater to fear. He honors reality. And reality rewards movement. Even imperfect movement. Especially imperfect movement. So the next time your mind spins with doubts, plans, revisions, stop. Breathe. Ask, what's the next right action? Then take it. Because your future doesn't come from what you think about endlessly. It comes from what you do repeatedly. Let action speak louder than your fears. Let it override your indecision. Let it carve a path forward one step at a time. You don't need motivation. You need meaning. Here's a hard question. How many times have you waited to feel motivated before doing what you know you need to do? It's a common rep. We think motivation is the ignition. That we can't begin until we feel inspired. That something inside us has to click before we act. But the Stoics would shake their heads at that, because they knew a deeper truth. You don't need motivation. You need meaning. Motivation is a spark. Fleeting. Fickle. Here today, gone by noon. But meaning? Meaning is a furnace. It burns quietly. Steadily. Regardless of how you feel. Marcus Aurelius never waited to be in the mood. He wrote at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. That line, it's not about hype. It's about duty. A reminder that your life matters. That your work, when done in alignment with virtue, is a gift to the world. You don't need to be in the mood to show up. You need to remember why it matters that you do. Let me ask you, what's your why? Not your surface goals, but your root reasons. Who are you becoming? What legacy are you leaving? What truths are you trying to embody? Because when you tap into that, you stop needing external fuel. You move from within. Discipline becomes devotion. Repetition becomes ritual. Obstacles become part of the practice. And even when it's boring or hard or thankless, you stay. Not because you're pumped up, but because you're plugged into purpose. Epictetus reminded his students, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That's it. Don't talk about being focused. Be focused. Don't wait to feel like showing up. Show up and feel something after. Let the meaning carry you when motivation fails. Because it will. But meaning doesn't waver. You don't brush your teeth because you're inspired. You do it because you're committed to health. You don't tend to your mind once a week when it's convenient. You do it every day because clarity is the foundation of everything. That's Stoicism. Not flashy, not emotional, essential. And when you live this way, you stop negotiating with your feelings. You stop asking, do I feel like it? You start asking, does this align with who I'm becoming? And when the answer is yes, you act. With no drama, no delay, just quiet, powerful consistency. So if you've been waiting for the perfect mood, the right playlist, the wave of inspiration, stop waiting. Start walking. Reconnect with meaning. And let that be enough. By now, you might be thinking, this sounds amazing. But can I actually live like this every day? The answer? No. Not perfectly. Not flawlessly. Not without failure. And that's the point. Because the Stoic path isn't about perfection. It's about return. Every day, the Stoic wakes up to the same world you do. With distractions. With disappointments. With unexpected problems and heavy emotions. And still he chooses. Not once, but again and again. He chooses stillness over speed. Reason over reaction. Presence over performance. He fails. He forgets. He gets frustrated, just like you. But he returns. That's the real practice. Not being unshakable all the time, but remembering, moment by moment, that you have the power to come back to your center. Epictetus didn't expect his students to never falter. He expected them to reflect, to observe, to ask better questions, to recomment. The Stoic path isn't a mountaintop you reach and then rest. It's a rhythm, a quiet discipline of daily becoming. So don't ask, will I always be calm? Ask, when I lose my calm, how quickly can I return? Don't ask, will I never be triggered? Ask, when I am, can I pause and choose clarity over chaos? Because that's where power lies, not in never stumbling, but in the strength to course mine is correct with compassion. Marcus Aurelius wrote thousands of pages, not to impress anyone, but to remind himself, to guide himself, to return to what matters when life pulled him off track. You can do the same. Start simple. A moment of silence in the morning. A daily journal 5 lines of truth. A pause before you speak when emotions run hot. A decision at night to forgive the day and return again tomorrow. The Stoic doesn't demand perfection from himself or anyone else. He simply refuses to abandon the path. He knows this life, this brief window of time, is too sacred to waste on noise, too precious to spend in reaction. So he returns. To reason. To virtue. To peace. And in that return, he finds something even deeper than discipline. He finds freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever he wants, but the freedom to become who he was meant to be. By choice. By design. By devotion. That's the Stoic way. And now, it's your turn. Let this not be a video you watch and forget. Let this be a seed. One you water daily. Patiently. Deliberately. Not to impress anyone, but because your future self is watching. And she is waiting. Waiting for you to return. To your strength. To your clarity. To your path. So take a deep breath. And begin again. Right now. If this message moved you, send it to someone who's ready to return to. And if you want more content that brings you back to what truly matters, subscribe. We're just getting started. And the path? It's always here, waiting. All you have to do is take the next step.